They thought the cameras were off. They thought no one would ever see it. But when that video leaked, the world finally saw what really happens inside Rikers Island. A guard's radio crackled in panic. A man was lying face down in a pool of blood, his jumpsuit torn open, his ribs bruised black. And standing over him were 3 correctional officers, not trying to help, but laughing. The footage spread like wildfire. News stations called it the Rikers video. Protesters flooded the streets of New York. "Shut it down," they screamed. "Shut Rikers down." But here's the thing. That video was just a small part of something much darker. Because what was buried beneath Rikers Island was a secret no one was supposed to find. Beat. So the question is, who leaked that video? And what did they risk to do it? 3 months earlier, Marcus Lane walked through the gates of Rikers for the first time. Not as an inmate, but as a new correctional officer. He was 27, fresh out of training, and determined to make a difference. Everyone told him the same thing. Keep your head down. Don't ask questions. But that's not who Marcus was. He wanted to help the inmates, especially the young ones. He'd grown up in the Bronx, and he knew what it was like to have nothing. On his first day, he noticed something strange. An inmate named Devin Brooks had bruises all over his face. When Marcus asked what happened, Devin whispered, "They did it, man, the Midnight Crew." Marcus frowned. "Who's the Midnight Crew?" Devin looked around nervously. "You'll see." That night, Marcus stayed late on shift. Around 2 a.m., he saw 3 senior officers dragging a man down the hallway. They disappeared into an empty cell block that wasn't on his patrol route. He followed quietly. From behind the steel door, he heard muffled cries. Then silence. The next morning, that same inmate was transferred. No paperwork. No explanation. Just gone. When Marcus asked his supervisor, Sergeant O'Neill, he got a cold stare. "Forget what you saw, rookie. You want to keep your job, you keep your mouth shut." Days later, Marcus couldn't stop thinking about it. He snuck into the record room after hours and searched for that inmate's name. But the file was missing. Only one document remained. A short note stamped in red ink. Classified. Internal security. Then the door creaked open. Footsteps echoed behind him. It was O'Neill. "Looking for something, Officer Lane?" he asked with a smirk. Marcus froze. The sergeant walked closer. "Don't make the same mistake the others did." He leaned in close, whispering, "You can't save anyone here. Rikers eats good men alive." That night, Marcus found something slipped under his locker door. A small flash drive wrapped in tape. On it, a single video file. When he pressed play, his screen filled with static. Then came the sound of screams. And what he saw next would change everything. Marcus sat alone in the break room, lights dimmed, heart pounding. The old computer buzzed as the video loaded. At first, it was just grainy security footage, timestamped 2:17 a.m. E-block. Then he saw it. 3 officers walked into the frame wearing black gloves and no name tags. They dragged a young inmate into the corner of the cell block. His hands cuffed, his mouth covered with tape. Marcus leaned closer, horrified. The guards took turns hitting him, not to restrain him, but to teach him a lesson. The man tried to speak, but one of the officers kicked him in the stomach. Then one guard turned to the camera and covered the lens with his hand. The screen went black. The file ended there. Marcus sat frozen. He didn't know who filmed it or who gave it to him. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just abuse. This was murder. And whoever leaked that video was still inside Rikers. Over the next few days, Marcus quietly started asking questions. He spoke to a few inmates, guys who'd been there for years, who'd seen everything. They told him the same thing. There's a group of guards who run this place at night. They call themselves the Midnight Crew. They control contraband, beat inmates who complain, and anyone who talks disappears. One inmate, Devin Brooks, warned Marcus. They got eyes everywhere. You even think about reporting them. You end up like Torres. Marcus frowned. Who's Torres? Devin stared at him, serious. Exactly. One night, Marcus followed the crew's patrol route. He noticed something strange. A metal door behind the laundry room, always kept locked. He waited until the night shift thinned out, then slipped in using a master key he'd borrowed from the office. Inside, the smell hit him first. Sweat, bleach, and something metallic. There were no inmates in this section, just empty cells. Empty, except for the blood stains on the floor. And, in the corner, a camera tripod. Marcus realized what this room was. It wasn't for inmates. It was for punishment. He took photos on his phone, his hands shaking. That's when he heard footsteps. A voice shouted from behind. "Who's in there?" He froze. The door slammed open. It was Sergeant O'Neill. O'Neill's face turned red with rage. He grabbed Marcus by the collar, shoving him against the wall. "You just couldn't mind your business, could you?" Marcus tried to speak, but O'Neill's grip tightened. "You think you can expose us? You have no idea who you're dealing with." O'Neill lifted his radio, pressing the call button. "Unit 5, we have a situation. Room 3B. Then he whispered in Marcus's ear, "You're not walking out of here tonight." The metal door slammed shut behind Marcus. He could hear the echo of boots pounding down the hallway. Backup was coming. He looked around frantically. No windows. No exits. Just concrete walls and a faint flicker from a busted light bulb. O'Neill stood in front of him, smiling, not like a man doing his job, but like someone who enjoyed what came next. "You think you're some kind of hero, huh?" O'Neill said. "You think you're gonna save Rikers? Let me tell you something, rookie. This place doesn't want to be saved." Marcus's heart raced. He had the photos on his phone. But if they caught him now, it was over. Then, from the radio on O'Neill's belt, a voice crackled. "Sergeant, we've got reporters outside the gate again. News crews this time." O'Neill cursed under his breath, turning away for just a second. That was all Marcus needed. He bolted toward the laundry chute and dove in headfirst. The narrow metal tunnel scraped his arms as he slid down into the darkness. He hit the bottom hard, landing in a pile of dirty uniforms. He was free for now. Marcus stumbled through the service tunnels, bruised but alive. He knew he couldn't go to the warden. O'Neill was the warden's right hand. So he did the only thing he could think of. He went to the inmates. In the mess hall, he found Devin Brooks sitting alone. Devin looked up, surprised. "Man, what are you doing here? You look like hell." Marcus sat across from him, lowering his voice. "They're hiding something. I have proof, videos, photos, everything. But I need a way to get it out." Devin hesitated. "You trust me?" Marcus nodded. Devin sighed. "There's a guard named Ellis. He hates O'Neill more than anybody. If anyone can sneak something out, it's him." But before they could say another word, the prison alarm blared. Beep, beep, beep. Every inmate dropped to the floor. Guards rushed in, shouting commands. An announcement echoed through the loudspeakers. "Attention. We are on full lockdown. Officer Marcus Lane, report to command immediately." Marcus's stomach sank. They knew. 2 guards grabbed him by the arms and dragged him into the control room. O'Neill stood there waiting, arms crossed. Next to him, the warden. On the table in front of them lay Marcus's phone. Smashed. O'Neill grinned. "You dropped something, Lane." Marcus tried to speak, but the warden cut him off. "Officer Lane, you've been accused of smuggling contraband and leaking confidential footage to the media. You're suspended pending investigation." Marcus's eyes widened. "That's not true. They're covering up. Take him to holding," O'Neill barked. The guards yanked him out of the room. As they dragged him down the hall, he caught a glimpse through the glass window. 3 men standing near the gate, loading a black duffel bag into a van. The same men from the video. And that's when he realized. They weren't just guards. They were part of something much bigger. As Marcus was shoved into the holding cell, he saw something scratched into the wall. 4 words, carved deep into the concrete. "They never leave alive." Then, from somewhere down the corridor, he heard a faint whisper. "Lane, you shouldn't have come back here." He turned toward the voice and saw a familiar face behind the bars. It was Devin Brooks. But something about him looked different. His eyes were hollow, his expression cold. Devin leaned closer to the bars and said softly, "They're coming for you tonight." The holding cell was cold, damp, and silent. Marcus sat on the edge of the metal bench, trying to steady his breathing. His wrists ached from the handcuffs. Outside, the lights flickered as if the power was struggling to stay alive. Then came the whisper again. "Marcus." He looked up. Devin Brooks was standing at the bars across from him, his voice low and shaky. "They're moving tonight," Devin said. "O'Neill and his crew. They're gonna clean house." Marcus frowned. "What do you mean?" Devin stepped closer. "They found out someone leaked that video. They think it was you. The last guy they suspected. He disappeared. You'll be next." Marcus's heart raced. "How do you know this?" Devin glanced around nervously. "Because I used to run errands for them. I know what they do to people who talk." Then Devin whispered one more thing. "There's someone else on the inside who can help you. Find Officer Ellis before they find you." A loud buzz echoed through the corridor. Clank. The electric doors unlocked. And from the shadows at the end of the hall, 3 figures appeared. Gloves. Masks. No name tags. The midnight crew. Marcus's pulse pounded in his ears. He had seconds before they reached his cell. He scanned the room. Nothing but a broken sink and a rusted vent cover. Then he remembered something. During training, one of the older guards told him, "If you ever end up in holding, the vent behind the bench leads to the maintenance shaft." He kicked the vent loose and crawled inside just as the first guard reached the door. The metal tunnel was tight, hot, and full of dust. He could barely breathe. Behind him, he heard the sound of boots and voices. "Check every cell. He's not getting out this time." Marcus crawled faster. He didn't know where the vent led, but anywhere was better than staying in that cell. After what felt like forever, he dropped out into a storage room. Old mop buckets, janitor carts, and cleaning supplies filled the space. He stumbled toward the back door, only to find it locked. Footsteps echoed from the hallway. They were close. He searched desperately, then spotted a small electrical panel on the wall. He ripped it open, crossed 2 wires, and the emergency door clicked open. He slipped through just as the door behind him burst open. "Lane, stop right there." He didn't. Marcus ran down a narrow corridor and crashed into another officer. They both hit the floor hard. "Easy. Easy, man," the officer said. It was Officer Ellis. Marcus caught his breath. "Devin said you could help me." Ellis's eyes widened. "You talked to Devin? That kid's supposed to be in isolation." Marcus shook his head. "He warned me. Said the midnight crew's coming." Ellis nodded grimly. "They already are." He looked over his shoulder, then back at Marcus. "Listen to me, kid. I've been collecting evidence on them for months. Videos, logs, everything. But we can't just walk out of here. They'll catch us before we reach the gate." Marcus frowned. "Then how do we get out?" Ellis took a deep breath. "There's a tunnel, an old supply route from the 1980s. It connects to the power substation outside the walls." Marcus blinked. "You mean there's a way out?" Ellis nodded. "Yeah, but we have to move now. Once they realize you're gone, the whole facility goes into lockdown." He tossed Marcus a key card. "Follow me. And whatever happens, don't stop running." They turned the corner toward the tunnel entrance, but froze. Standing in front of it was Sergeant O'Neill. His shirt was splattered with blood, his eyes wild. "I warned you, Lane," he said softly. "You just couldn't keep your nose out of our business." He raised his radio, pressing the red button. "Command, we have 2 traitors in the lower east corridor. Seal the exits." Klaxon blares. The siren screamed, and the red emergency lights began to flash. Ellis whispered, "They're sealing the building." O'Neill smiled. "You're not getting out this time." Red lights pulsed through the corridor like slow, angry heartbeats. Marcus and Ellis stood frozen. O'Neill blocked the tunnel entrance, his baton glinting in the dim light. From somewhere down the hall came the slam of metal doors. Clang, clang, clang. The lockdown was in full effect. Marcus took a step forward. You don't have to do this, O'Neill. O'Neill smirked. You think this is about me? You think I run this place? He slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver key. This island runs on secrets, boy. Always has. We just keep it quiet so the city doesn't burn. Ellis clenched his fists. You call murder and torture keeping it quiet? O'Neill's voice dropped low. You think you're some kind of hero, Ellis? You've been here too long. You should know, Rikers doesn't let heroes live. Then, without warning, O'Neill lunged. Ellis grabbed Marcus and shoved him to the floor as the baton swung overhead. Crack. The blow missed Marcus by inches, slamming into the wall. Ellis tackled O'Neill, and the two men crashed into a supply cart. Metal clanged, bottles shattered, and the lights flickered again. Go, Ellis shouted. Get to the tunnel. Marcus hesitated. Not without you. But before he could move, O'Neill slammed Ellis against the wall. Blood splattered across the floor. Marcus grabbed the key card and sprinted toward the tunnel door. He swiped it, and the metal hatch groaned open. Behind him, O'Neill's voice echoed. You can run all you want, Lane, but you can't hide from Rikers. Marcus ducked into the tunnel and pulled the hatch shut. The air inside was damp and heavy. Flickering bulbs lit the narrow path ahead. He ran, barely able to breathe, every sound amplified by the walls. He could hear footsteps behind him. Slow, steady, getting closer. Then, the lights went out. Total darkness. He froze. All he could hear was his heartbeat. Then a faint metallic tap, tap, tap. Someone was in the tunnel with him. Marcus's hands shook as he pulled out his phone, using the dim glow from the crack screen to see. A shadow moved in the distance. Ellis, he whispered. No answer. He kept walking slowly, light trembling in his hand. Then, out of the dark, a voice whispered. You should have left alone. O'Neill's face appeared inches from his, smeared with sweat and blood. He'd followed him. O'Neill grabbed Marcus by the throat, slamming him against the wall. You think you can expose us? The Midnight Crew isn't just 3 men. It's everyone. The warden, the union, the city, they all know. They need this place. Marcus gasped for air, struggling to speak. You're lying. O'Neill leaned closer, eyes burning. Am I? He threw Marcus to the ground and raised his baton again. But before he could strike, bang! A gunshot echoed through the tunnel. O'Neill dropped to one knee, clutching his shoulder. Behind him stood Ellis, bleeding but alive, holding a stolen pistol. Step away from him, Sergeant, Ellis growled. O'Neill laughed through the pain. You don't get it, do you? Even if you kill me, you'll never make it off this island. Then his radio crackled to life. Unit Bravo, we have visuals on 2 rogue officers in the lower tunnel. Authorization to terminate granted. Ellis's eyes went wide. Terminate. They're going to. The tunnel lights began to flash red again. A deep rumble shook the ground. O'Neill grinned through gritted teeth. They're sealing the tunnels. You've got maybe 5 minutes before this whole section floods. Marcus turned to Ellis. What do we do now? Ellis looked toward the far end of the tunnel. A rusted maintenance ladder leading up into darkness. He holstered the gun and said, We climb. The tunnel began to shake as the sound of rushing water filled the air. Pipes burst overhead, spraying cold streams from every direction. Marcus slipped, falling to his knees in the filthy water that was already climbing past his ankles. Ellis shouted over the noise. Move. If the substation floods, this whole tunnel's going under. They sprinted toward the ladder, boots splashing with every step. The red lights flashed faster now, warning of total system failure. Marcus could barely hear anything over the deafening roar. Behind them, O'Neill stumbled to his feet, bleeding but relentless. He staggered after them, shouting, You can't run from Rikers. No one ever leaves this place clean. Ellis reached the ladder first. Climb. I'll hold him off. But Marcus refused. Not leaving you again. Ellis turned, raising his gun, but it clicked empty. No bullets left. O'Neill grinned. You're out, old man. He charged forward, tackling Ellis into the water. Both men went under with a violent splash. Marcus yelled. Ellis. He dove in after them, the freezing water swallowing him whole. Underwater, everything was chaos. Bubbles, fists, muffled grunts. Marcus grabbed O'Neill's arm, trying to pull him off Ellis. O'Neill twisted free, shoving Marcus into the wall. The impact knocked the air out of him. He reached for anything he could find. His hand landed on a loose metal pipe. As O'Neill lunged again, Marcus swung it. Crack. The pipe hit O'Neill square in the jaw. He fell back, blood mixing with the rising water. Marcus grabbed Ellis by the vest and dragged him toward the ladder. Come on. The two men climbed as the water chased them upward, faster and faster. It was knee-deep, then waist-deep, then up to their chests. By the time Marcus reached the top rung, the tunnel below was completely submerged. He slammed his shoulder into the hatch above. It didn't budge. He hit it again. Still nothing. The water was up to his chin now. Ellis, he shouted. Help me push. They both rammed their shoulders against the metal cover. And with a heavy clang, it finally popped open. Fresh air hit Marcus's face like fire. He gasped and pulled himself out into a dimly lit utility room. Ellis climbed out behind him, coughing, soaked, exhausted, but alive. They looked around. The room was old, dusty, forgotten. A faded sign on the wall read, Substation C, Maintenance Access Restricted. In the corner stood a steel door with a single red light above it. Next to it, a keypad. Ellis limped over and stared at it. I knew this was here, but I never had the code. Marcus looked around. Something about the room felt off. Too clean, too staged. Then he noticed a folder on the desk near the wall, labeled Project Blacktide. Inside were photos of guards, inmates, even city officials. Meetings, money transfers, falsified death certificates. Marcus's stomach turned. Ellis, this isn't just a cover-up. It's a whole operation. Before Ellis could answer, the red light above the door began to blink. A loud beep followed, and the keypad unlocked itself. Ellis frowned. That's not possible. It only opens from command. The steel door creaked open slowly, revealing a long stairway leading upward. And at the top, a faint glow of daylight. Ellis turned to Marcus. Looks like somebody wants us to leave. Marcus hesitated. Or they want us to walk into a trap. Ellis smiled weakly. Kid, everything on this island's a trap. They stepped forward together, climbing toward the light. As they reached the top of the stairs, the sunlight grew brighter. The air felt different, clean, warm, real. Marcus pushed open the final door, and they stepped out, only to freeze in horror. They weren't outside. They were standing in what looked like a massive underground facility. Rows of servers, control panels, and security feeds lined the walls. Dozens of monitors showed live footage from inside Rikers, every hallway, every cell. And on the largest screen, in bold white letters, were the words, Live recording, Internal Experiment 47A. Marcus whispered, What is this place? Ellis looked around, stunned. This isn't a prison anymore, he said quietly. It's a lab. Suddenly, a distorted voice came through the intercom above them. Welcome to the heart of Rikers, Officer Lane. You finally found the truth. Marcus looked up, terrified. He recognized the voice. It was the warden. The intercom crackled again, deep and metallic. Officer Lane. Officer Ellis. I must admit, I'm impressed. No one was supposed to make it this far. Marcus looked around, trying to find the source of the voice. Where are you? What is this place? The warden chuckled softly. You're standing in the operations center of Rikers Island's most classified program, Project Blacktide. Ellis shouted back, You turned this prison into a torture lab. Lab, the warden said. No, Officer Ellis. We turned it into a solution. Marcus clenched his fists. A solution for what? The room screens flickered to life, displaying files, names, faces, inmate numbers, mugshots. The warden's voice continued. New York is overcrowded. Too many inmates, not enough cells. So we partnered with, let's call them interested organizations, to run controlled behavioral experiments. The violent ones, the hopeless ones, were perfect test subjects. Ellis's face twisted in disbelief. You're experimenting on human beings. On criminals, the warden corrected. People the city forgot. People no one would miss. Marcus felt sick. And the midnight crew? They were our field operators, said the warden. They handled enforcement, extractions, and cleanup. You were never supposed to see that footage, Officer Lane. That leak ruined years of work. The intercom buzzed louder, the warden's tone turning cold. But don't worry. You won't remember any of this when we're done. A loud click echoed through the room. Suddenly, the lights turned red. Thick metal shutters began to slide down over the exits. Ellis ran to the door, pulling at it desperately. It's locking down again. Marcus grabbed the keyboard at the control desk. There's got to be a way to override it. On one of the screens, a digital timer appeared. System purge, 5 o'clock minutes. Marcus typed frantically. He's wiping everything, videos, files, the proof, everything. Ellis grabbed the folder Marcus had found earlier. Forget the system. We have this. Hard copies. They can't erase these. Then, from behind the rows of servers, came the sound of boots. Multiple boots. Marcus froze. Ellis, we're not alone. From the shadows emerged 3 masked men, black uniforms, no insignia. The midnight crew. Their leader, taller than the rest, carried a stun baton that hummed with electricity. Orders are clear, he said. No survivors. Ellis raised the pistol he'd taken earlier. Try me. The room erupted into chaos. The first guard swung the baton. Ellis ducked, countering with a hard punch that sent the man crashing into a monitor. Sparks flew. Marcus grabbed a chair and smashed it against another guard's arm, sending his weapon skidding across the floor. The third one lunged, tackling Marcus into the server rack. They grappled, metal crashing around them. Marcus's hand brushed against the dropped baton. He grabbed it, swung upward. Zap. A flash of blue light filled the room as the man fell twitching to the floor. Ellis fired a warning shot into the ceiling. Back off. But the leader didn't move. He stepped forward slowly, removing his mask. Marcus's heart stopped. It was Sergeant O'Neill. His left arm hung limp from the gunshot wound, but his eyes burned with hatred. You just don't die easy, do you? Ellis said. O'Neill smirked. You can't kill a ghost, Ellis. And I'll make sure neither of you leave this place alive. O'Neill pressed a button on his belt, and the walls began to rumble. The floor panels split open, revealing a massive underground shaft below them, glowing red from emergency lights. The timer on the screen hit 1 o'clock minute. O'Neill shouted over the noise. This island doesn't need guards or inmates anymore. It's all one big experiment now. Ellis grabbed Marcus's arm. We need to go now. But before they could move, O'Neill charged again, tackling Marcus toward the edge. They struggled near the open shaft, both men hanging on the edge by inches. Ellis screamed, Marcus. The timer on the monitor ticked down. 00:10, 00:09, 00:08. O'Neill's grip tightened. If I go down, you're coming with me. Marcus looked him dead in the eye. Then let's go together. He let go. Both men fell into the shaft as the alarms blared. The screen flashed. Purge complete. The entire room exploded in white light. A low ringing filled Ellis's ears. Everything was white. Then, slowly, shadows began to take shape. Concrete dust drifted through the air. Sparks fell from broken cables. The control room, once alive with screens and alarms, was now nothing but twisted metal and fire. Ellis coughed, dragging himself out from under a pile of debris. Marcus? No answer. He looked around, half blind from a blast. The massive hole in the floor was still there, glowing faintly red from the emergency lights deep below. Marcus, he yelled again, voice cracking. Then, faintly, from the darkness below, came a weak voice. Ellis. Ellis froze. He crawled to the edge of the shaft and peered down. About 15 feet below, clinging to a bent metal pipe, was Marcus, barely conscious, his uniform torn and burned. Hang on. Ellis shouted. Don't you dare let go. Marcus's hand slipped. I can't feel my arm. Ellis grabbed a cable from the wreckage and tied it around a heavy pipe. "You're not dying here, Lane." He slid down, his boots scraping against the metal wall, the heat rising from below like a furnace. He reached Marcus, wrapping the cable around his waist, pulling with everything he had. Both men collapsed at the top, coughing and gasping for air. Ellis looked over at him. "You're lucky, you stubborn bastard." Marcus groaned, half smiling. "I told you. I wasn't leaving this place until we exposed everything." But Ellis's face hardened. Exposed? Marcus, the purge wiped everything. The drives, the files, everything's gone. Marcus turned his head slowly toward the corner of the room, where the folder lay, burned but still intact. Not everything. The fire alarms were still blaring. Red lights flashed along the hallway beyond the control room. Ellis limped toward the exit, supporting Marcus on his shoulder. The steel door was half melted, but beyond it was a tunnel they hadn't seen before, a long service passage stretching into darkness. Marcus frowned. This wasn't on the blueprints. Ellis nodded. "That's because we were never meant to see it." They entered slowly, flashlights flickering. The air grew colder. The walls changed from concrete to smooth metal, and soon they started to see things that made their blood run cold. Large glass chambers, fogged up from the inside. Medical tables. Restraints. And behind one glass wall, a shadow moved. Marcus whispered, "What is that?" They approached cautiously. Inside the chamber was an inmate, pale, eyes open, breathing heavily through a mask. A label on the glass read, "Subject 47B/Experimental Phase 2. Marcus backed away, horrified. They didn't just test behavior, they tested people. Ellis swallowed hard. Project Black Tide wasn't about control. It was about transformation. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, and the sound of boots echoed from behind them. "Run!" Ellis shouted. They sprinted down the passage, sirens wailing above. The shadows of guards, armed and fast, appeared at the far end of the corridor. Marcus stumbled but pushed forward, clutching the folder to his chest. Bullets pinged off the walls as they turned a corner. Ellis spotted a service ladder leading upward. This way, they climbed fast, boots slipping on the metal rungs. The tunnel below filled with shouting and gunfire. At the top, Ellis pushed open a hatch, and they emerged into the cold night air. For the first time, they could see the prison yard again, smoke rising from the explosion site, lights flashing across the island. Helicopters circled overhead. Searchlights swept the ground. Marcus fell to his knees, breathing hard. "They'll hunt us, Ellis. You know that." Ellis stared toward the main tower, where the warden's office once stood. "Then we make it worth it. We get this out to the world." Marcus opened the folder. Inside were several surviving pages, names, medical codes, and a list of contractors connected to Project Black Tide. Ellis's jaw tightened. This isn't over. Not even close. Suddenly, a red sniper that appeared on Marcus's chest. Ellis saw it too late. "Get down." The gunshot echoed across the yard. Marcus fell backward, clutching his side, the folder scattering across the ground. Ellis dropped beside him, panicking. "Marcus, stay with me." Marcus's hand trembled, reaching for the papers. "Don't let them bury this." Before Ellis could respond, more searchlights locked onto them. A loudspeaker boomed from above. "This is Warden Hawthorne. Surrender now." Ellis's eyes widened. The warden was alive. He grabbed Marcus's collar, dragging him behind a destroyed vehicle as more bullets tore through the yard. The loudspeaker echoed again. "You can't stop the system, Officer Ellis. You are the system." Ellis clenched his teeth, staring toward the tower. And in that moment, something inside him snapped. This ends tonight. The camera slowly zooms out as Rikers burns in the background, smoke rising into the night sky, and Ellis disappears into the chaos, gripping his gun and the last surviving piece of evidence. The yard was chaos. Flames climbed the watchtowers. Sirens wailed like dying animals. Guards ran in every direction, shouting orders that no one followed anymore. Ellis dragged Marcus behind a wrecked patrol van, his breathing ragged. blood staining his shirt. "Stay with me," Ellis said. "I'm not losing you here." Marcus coughed, voice weak but determined. "Don't worry about me. Get the warden. End this." Ellis looked toward the tower, the heart of Rikers Island. A single light still burned at the top floor. He nodded. "I will." He tore a strip from his own uniform, pressing it against Marcus's wound. Then, taking the pistol and a flare from the ground, he stood up, eyes locked on the tower. Every step he took toward it felt heavier, the ground shaking beneath him from small explosions echoing across the compound. Inmates screamed from locked cells, others banged on bars, begging to be freed from the inferno. Ellis passed through the chaos without flinching. He wasn't there to save anyone. He was there to end it. Inside the tower, the lights flickered. The walls were covered with black smoke and bullet holes. Ellis stepped over fallen guards, some unconscious, others motionless. He gripped his gun tighter, ears tuned to every echo, every metallic creak of the burning prison. Halfway up the staircase, he heard the familiar voice through the intercom again, calm, composed. "Officer Ellis, you could have left. You could have saved yourself. But you had to be the hero." Ellis stopped. "You murdered people. You turned this place into hell." The warden's voice replied smoothly, "No, I transformed it. You can't fix the criminal mind through mercy. It takes structure and fear." Ellis sneered. "You're not a warden. You're a monster with a badge." He pushed through the last door at the top of the stairs and froze. The warden's office was almost untouched by the destruction. Marble floor, polished desk, expensive whiskey bottles lined up perfectly, and sitting calmly in the middle of it all, Warden Hawthorne. He was in his 60s, gray hair slicked back, uniform spotless despite the chaos outside. Behind him, through the shattered windows, Rikers burned. He turned slowly, meeting Ellis's eyes with a faint smile. "Officer Ellis, you survived more than most." Ellis raised his gun. End of the line. Hawthorne didn't flinch. "Do you really think killing me will change anything? Project Black Tide isn't mine. It's government sanctioned. Every test, every experiment, every inmate, it was all approved." Ellis's hand trembled. "You're lying." Hawthorne walked closer, unbothered by the weapon pointed at his chest. "You've seen the files. The signatures. You think I could authorize all that alone? The people funding this program, people you vote for, they want this." Ellis gritted his teeth. "You tortured innocent men." "Innocent." Hawthorne snapped. "Murderers. Rapists. Gang leaders. You've seen what they do, officer. You've cleaned up their blood. Tell me, what did mercy ever get you?" Ellis hesitated, the fire reflecting in his eyes. Then he said softly, "A conscience." Before the warden could respond, Ellis reached into his pocket and pulled out a small recorder. "I already sent part of the file to an off-site server. Everything you said here, every word, is being recorded." For the first time, Hawthorne's face changed. "You wouldn't dare." Ellis smirked. "You taught me fear works. Now it's your turn." Hawthorne lunged forward, grabbing for the gun. The two men struggled. The weapon went off. Bang. Glass shattered. Papers flew. Both men froze. Hawthorne stumbled back, clutching his shoulder, blood seeping through his jacket. Ellis stared, breathing heavily, gun still raised. The warden laughed weakly. "You think you've won? You're just another file now, Ellis. They'll erase you just like the rest." He pressed a button on his desk. A hidden panel on the wall slid open, revealing a steel elevator. Before Ellis could react, Hawthorne stepped inside and the doors slammed shut. Ellis sprinted to the panel, slamming his fists against it. No. The elevator lights flickered as it began descending into darkness. A red digital display above the door read, "Sublevel 9, Project Core Access." Ellis grabbed the recorder from the floor, tucking it into his vest. He stared at the glowing display, heart pounding. Marcus was bleeding out in the yard. The prison was collapsing. But deep below, the man who caused it all was escaping into something even darker. Ellis took one final breath, reloaded his gun, and stepped into the second elevator beside it. As the doors closed, the camera panned out. The burning island reflected in his eyes, and the elevator began to descend into the unknown. Fade to black. The elevator hummed as it sank deeper beneath Rikers Island. The walls vibrated. Steam hissed through vents. The floor indicator flashed past sublevel 3, sublevel 6, sublevel 9. Ellis tightened his grip on the pistol, his reflection in the steel walls pale and bruised. He whispered to himself, "Whatever's down here, it ends tonight." When the doors finally opened, a wave of cold air hit him. He stepped into a massive underground chamber, bigger than any part of the prison above. The space was filled with computers, flickering lights, and rows of glass containment pods. Inside each pod, humans. Some were unconscious. Others were awake, watching him through the glass with hollow, terrified eyes. A glowing sign above the central control unit read, "Project Blacktide active." And there, standing at the console, was Warden Hawthorne. Blood soaked through his sleeve, but his posture was proud, defiant. Ellis raised his gun. "Step away, Hawthorne." The warden turned slowly, his face half-lit by the monitors. "You don't understand what you walked into, Ellis. This isn't a prison anymore. It's a prototype." Ellis frowned. "For what?" Hawthorne gestured to the pods. "For the future. Blacktide is designed to control behavior, permanently. No more reoffenders. No more prisons. Just obedience." Ellis's voice shook with disgust. "You brainwash people. You killed them." Hawthorne smirked. "Correction, we recondition them. Imagine a world where every violent mind is rewritten, where every criminal becomes a model citizen. You think the government will shut that down?" Ellis took a step closer. "You're not saving anyone. You're playing God." Hawthorne's expression hardened, and God needed someone to do his dirty work. He tapped a key on the console. The pods around them began to hiss open, one by one. The sound of gas vents and heavy machinery filled the chamber. Steam flooded the room. From the pods stepped a handful of figures, once inmates, now altered, their eyes empty and skin pale under the lights. Ellis raised his gun. "What did you do to them?" "They're free of rage now," Hawthorne said. "Pure obedience. My final soldiers." The figures moved toward Ellis, slow at first, then faster. He opened fire. 2 went down, but more emerged. He dove behind a console, reloading, sparks flying overhead. The warden shouted, "You can't stop them. They don't feel pain. They don't stop." Ellis spotted a large red lever marked core power control. He aimed and shot it. Bang! The entire chamber trembled. The lights flickered out. Sirens blared as machinery began to overheat. "What have you done?" Hawthorne screamed. Ellis stood, smoke rising behind him. "I just pulled the plug." The pods shattered from pressure. Sparks flew. The walls began to crack as explosions echoed from above. Ellis ran toward the exit ladder, limping, coughing from the smoke. Behind him, Hawthorne tried to crawl toward the console, screaming over the alarms. "You'll destroy everything. The data, years of research." Ellis turned back one last time. Exactly. He fired a single shot, hitting the main terminal. The explosion that followed shook the entire island. A surge of fire and light swallowed the chamber. Hours later, a Coast Guard helicopter hovered over the ruins of Rikers Island. The once mighty prison was now a smoking wasteland, half of it sunk into the river. Emergency crews searched through the debris. They found dozens of survivors, guards, inmates, and staff, injured but alive. Among them, lying near the shoreline, was Ellis. His body was covered in ash and blood, but he was breathing. A rescuer shouted, "We got one. He's alive." As they lifted him onto the stretcher, something slipped from his pocket. A small, scorched recorder. The medic picked up, curious. When she pressed play, through the static came a faint, cold voice. "Project Blacktide operational until further notice. Signed, Deputy Director Harold Kent, Department of Justice." The medic's face turned pale. This wasn't just a prison. A year passed. News reports flooded the nation about the Rikers Island incident. Officials blamed it on a gas explosion and system failure. No mention of black died. No mention of the experiments. But on an independent journalist's website, a video was uploaded anonymously. It contained footage from the destroyed control room audio files and the warden's voice confessing everything. The title read, "The Dark Secrets of Rikers Island Exposed." The video went viral overnight. Millions watched. And for the first time, the world saw what had really happened behind those walls. Somewhere in a quiet apartment, Ellis sat by a window, a bandage still on his arm. He looked out over the city lights. Marcus's dog tags hung around his neck. On the table beside him, the recorder still playing faintly. He whispered to himself, "They can build another prison. They can hide another lie. But they'll never bury the truth." The screen slowly faded to black as the sound of police sirens echoed in the distance. Text on screen. In the aftermath of the Rikers Island explosion, no official investigation into Project Black Tide was ever made public. The facility was permanently shut down in 2023. All related files remain classified.